Lentz, who is a programmer at the New York Asian Film Festival and has written, is a prolific writer on Chinese film and Asian cinema. So next to David, we've got Dylan Marchetti, who is a senior vice president at WellGo USA, and he's brought a ton of Chinese films to the American market, so he knows all about that. Next to Dylan, there's Daniel Eagan, who is a film historian and another very, very prolific writer and an expert on Chinese film. And then we've got Aliza Ma, who is head of programming at New York's Metrograph Theater, which is a wonderful space that shows lots of amazing films. So that's great. And finally, we've got Guan Yadi, who is a well-known producer of films in China and an entrepreneur, really, who studied at the Beijing Film Academy, knows everything about film in China. So over to you guys.
So, is this mic working? Can you hear me?
Yeah. Yes.
Right. Okay, so yes, I'm a programmer with the New York Asian Film Festival. We're very happy to be hosting this event. We this year had a few special free talks like this with directors from around Asia, with Chinese directors and so forth. We have a partnership with China Institute, also Confucius Institute, and we brought over Mr. Guan, for example. So let's get talking about genre film in China. To begin with, I think we should try to define and maybe delineate genre film itself and genre film, how it is defined in China. Does anyone want to jump in right away? For example, we showed, like a week ago, we showed Operation Red Sea by director Don DeLong, which I think WellGo is handling in the States.
That's ours.
That is, as far as I can see, the most obvious genre film. It's a big, huge action film. It's interesting on a few levels how it is defined as genre in abroad as well in China, and also that it has a Hong Kong, originally from Hong Kong director.
Totally. You know, we've traced this. Can you hear me with or without?
You need to press it. Let me hear your voice. Sorry.
Mic check.
That should be okay. Yes, if the green light's
Hello.
on. Yeah.
Okay, now we're cooking. Yeah, I mean, look, we look at genre a lot of ways. I mean, you know, obviously there's not going to be gobs of Chinese horror coming out that's not a genre that's popular there. That's what a lot of, you know, Americans do is when they think genre, they think horror thriller. Loads of Chinese thrillers, loads of action movies, and I would say that like the military action genre right now in China is obviously one of the, you know, most interesting things that's being developed because the films are far larger than the American counterparts at this point, and that's something that we were talking about. We've also seen, you know, the old tried and true tropes. You know, the fantasy genre still going strong. The martial arts genre, there's fewer of them, but they tend to be bigger now, and you know, then you get into Hong Kong, and then things get a little bit more familiar. You know, you've got your hardcore cop films, you've got your hardcore police procedurals, that kind of thing. And they're all getting better. Right? The budgets seem higher, the technical craft is perfect, and it's not something that maybe 20 years ago you could look at some of these and say that's a low budget Hong Kong film, and now you look at these films coming out of China like that, looks like a $50 million Hollywood movie.
I think trying to identify or define genre is quite a tenuous task because there, you know, there are certain people that would argue that genre cinema in fact doesn't really exist because it's always such a shifting landscape in that it both reflects and corresponds and informs the audience. And so it's a product of its time, but it also shapes and redefines the times. So for instance, like in Hollywood cinema, you have certain genres that were codified in the 20s and 30s, and then with the advent of television towards the mid-century, you know, genres that were defined in previous decades became more self-reflexive, became more self-parodying. And I think with genre cinema, you're always sort of involved in this interplay between fulfilling audience expectation and also defying it at the same time. And what's interesting with Chinese cinema right now, and in terms of genre cinema, is that it is such a shifting economic landscape. And you know, what's been changing in the economy of filmmaking is affecting the different types of genre films that can be made.
So, I think, but in December maybe last year, you actually programmed a series that was, I'm paraphrasing, Chinese neo-noir, something like that?
New noir.
New noir, so you had films like Black Hole, Thin Ice. I think you had Coffins in the Mountain.
Coffin in the Mountain.
And we just played at New York Asian Film Festival Wrath of Silence, which is a new film by the same director.
Black Hole, Thin Ice.
Right.
The Dylan Marchetti title.
Right on. So how does that, this is where I get into delineation, does that fall into genre in any of those kind of films?
Yeah, well, I think maybe this is a thesis that some people would disagree with, but it seems like in the early aughts, you have very sophisticated young filmmakers who are finding ways to make political, or at least like more socially engaged film that were coded in genre, so that they wouldn't necessarily be subject to censorship and the strictures of that. So what's wonderful about a film like Black Hole Thin Ice is that not only was it able to get into all the festivals, it was very successful in terms of domestic box office. It had a long, successful life internationally. And I think it was a relatively uncompromised artistic vision from a filmmaker, from a very brilliant young filmmaker. And crime film and genre film and sort of film noir, that's an appropriated genre, really, because crime films were pretty much outlawed around during the Cultural Revolution. And so now I think, filmmakers they're watching more international films and they're absorbing these genre tropes and utilizing them to express certain views they have about their own surroundings.
What about genres that we have? For example, we have superhero movies. Is that going to happen in China? Because I think there was an article saying that those couldn't be made, but the same article said science fiction could be made, although I think the next film is science fiction. No?
Actually, last film is science fiction.
Oh, sorry.
I think excuse me, I feel a little bit weird because I take a lot of time at a panel like this. So I'm just waiting for translation. Oh, no translation. So it's my first time to do it in English. On my back. But yesterday we have very good interpreter, Simon, here. So I invite you sitting here. So when I saw you, I'm more comfortable. if I feel too hard, because I will say a lot of things, basically, definitely use this Mandarin. So I can speak Mandarin. If I can't, I don't know how to say it. So I can say call for help. Okay. They allow me. Thank you. So you're talking about. I agree with you. I think there's two things. One, something never changed. I mean, genre film, Chinese film, but something always changing every day. The never changing is love, the romance and action never change. Comedy and action always works in China. But the others, they're changing every day. We don't know. We don't know what's going to happen. There's something, I think two things. One, new generation filmmakers uprising. I just interviewed with the journalists, right? I was talking, not big name. They're still there, but they're going to be, I don't know, go where, maybe nowhere. But a lot of new names. A lot of films directed by first-time director also get very successful. It's not very Euro as before. Even last weekend's new film, Dying to Survive, ran already 1.8 billion RMB in 7 days. They're going to definitely be over 3 billion, I think. Even maybe over Red Sea, the operation, maybe.
Wow.
So, but another thing, changing everything. I mean, the policy, the censorship. I mean, not technically the detailed censorship. For example, the war film stuff inside. They already tell you, don't do that, because, you know, a documentary about 厉害了我的脖子怎么办? I don't know. The documentary.
Amazing China.
Yeah, you Google it. You know, say China looks so good, looks great. The documentary, over 400 million RMB. They stop, even take it off from all the videos website. So, because they think,
China.
What?
Amazing China.
Amazing China.
Oh, marvel to my country.
Yeah,
Marvel to my country.
Marvel man.
Marvel to my country.
Marvel.
Make my country sound very marvelous. Yeah.
So something they push, but sometimes they.
That's the name of the film?
Yeah,
It's called Amazing China according to Wikipedia.
because the Chinese name a little bit popular word on internet. 厉害了我的国. Like a title, you know. So I mean, they're changing every day. So we don't. So the producers and directors, some people chasing the rules, even they are changing every day. Some guys never change. That's just to be their self. I think that's totally different. And you said sci-fi. It's very interesting. Very, very interesting. I never thought sci-fi I'm waiting so long time, but when really it comes, I can't used to it because 10 years ago, 2008, I bought the copyrights from Liu Cixin. You definitely know who is Liu Cixin, right? The bulletin, the copyrights, for 2 years. It's too short, but he only gave me 2 years. I'm gonna say, okay. So a very good distributor, Carrie Wong, helped me, bring me first time come to States. Go to Fox International, go to the Fox studio. I pitch in English, not like this. Even you know, I can't imagine that. I can't recall it. 1 hour to pitch to Sanford, the president of the Fox International president, to want to make a $15 million budget sci-fi film. I even already signed a director from Singapore, Chinese guy, Singapore. And Perry Till. I already raised the $5 million. I need another 2 quarters. So it not works. I signed the copyrights from Liu Cixin even earlier than Three Bodies Club. Because we already saw the first one. Liu Cixin sent an email to me, the Dark Forest to me. I talked with my partner Zhang Xiaobei. Right now, is the director of the Pathfinder. Would like to bring it.
That's also an upcoming sci-fi, isn't it?
Yeah.
So it seems to me that sci-fi does exist, whereas
Yes.
a burgeoning genre in China.
I just want to say, Zhang Xiaobei also the writer of the bulletin. Even 10 years later, it not been made. So we are waiting Chinese sci-fi film for over 10 years. I mean, 10 years ago, I tried my best to want to make it for lightning, but I failed. And 10 years later, it seems to be every filmmaker talking about sci-fi film, Chinese sci-fi film. So let's go back. I just want to, something never changed. If you want to make comedy, action, it's okay. It's safe. But the others, I don't know what's going to happen. I mean, the 超时空同居, I don't know how to in English. New romance film, over 100 million RMB. Nobody thought, well, why?
So going back to when Dylan started, but
How long will I look?
How long we are living? Yeah, it's romance.
how do you think genre is thought of in China? Because comedy, do we think of that as just straight up, like Dylan was saying, you say genre and usually you think, oh, that's horror or something that's more exploiting the tropes of each category. Comedy may be too broad, I don't know. Maybe it's different in China, or maybe you have a specific kind of comedy. Or maybe you have a specific rom-com, you define that.
All the
What is-
kinds of comedy. If you make people laugh, it works. Because I think maybe they have to set everything. Maybe. I don't know. Just all kinds of work. Maybe dark humor, sarcasm, everything. If you really make people laugh, it's, just make it work. It's okay. It's good box office. But by the way, Stephen not here. Yesterday he just told me even about subtitles. If you film in the last 5 years, maybe 2000 to 2005, Chinese film with English subtitles gets better box office. Some distributors tell me it's different. So definitely it's not wrong, but it can reflect some, the people thinking. So I just find in the last 2 years another new round upcoming. It's going to last a very long time. I think it's totally new. Not very new. I mean, I don't know how to say it. The story based on a true story.
Okay.
The film based on true story. It's going to be more and more.
Any kind of story, or for example, we have true crime, which is usually very dark.
Yeah. 曹保平的那个烈日灼身 I don't know how to say English. 烈日灼身
The dead end.
Dead end.
Dead end. But it's not based on true. It's inspired by true crime.
But isn't Dying to Survive, isn't that based on a true story?
Definitely, that is perfect case. It's perfect case based on true story. Because also another film, not very a Hollywood film, not very successful in China, but I think it's a very, very good film. It's about a firefighter, the whole team firefighter dead. It's an American film. It's released in China. And I'm crying. I think really good, but box office not good. But I think because it's an American story. If you a Chinese story, just like Dying to Survive, everybody crying in the theater. Nobody moved when the film just even I hear my friends clapping. It's not happening.
So what do you think is the potential audiences now in China for a science fiction film? Like, because I was reading that, it definitely seems like sci-fi is a genre that's sort of trending right now in China. Like in 2015, there were 75 sci-fi novels published, according to the study. And then the year after that, there were 104, and I think now there must be even more. So it seems like science fiction as a genre is very much like sort of in the lexicon of people's cultural experience now, in a way that it never used to be, in part because it was banned, aside from certain Soviet sci-fi.
The sci-fi are also very safe, because who knows how many years later, so they can't censor it, right?
Right.
So it's kind of safe.
Yeah, like the crime film.
Even Jackie Chan's doing sci-fi, Beat of Steel, right?
He always do this, but it's not technically that's hardcore sci-fi. Right now, we step into some kind of hardcore sci-fi, like a Pathfinder. We only spend very small, and you can see small budget. I think. I can't see exactly the numbers.
Does everyone know about this upcoming film, Pathfinder?
No.
Speak a little bit about it.
Pathfinder, directed by Zhang Xiaowei. I think I would like to bring this film next year. The NYAFF. Okay.
Please.
And a story about people's try to survive on a new planet. You have a spaceship, gunfighting, totally hardcore sci-fi, but they only made it few million US dollars. I think it's decent budget.
Wow.
And I want to say, but only our films, this kind of low budget. The others, they are all average 400 million, maybe 60 million.
The other, not sci-fi in China, is averaging.
Wandering Earth.
Okay.
And the in-house film. They are all very, very big money.
400 million?
No, 400 million RMB.
Oh, sorry. Okay.
400 million RMB. So I just talked about 10 years ago, I love sci-fi. I waited already 10 years. Maybe next year, kind of dream come true. But I can, in some way, I think maybe still too quick. I mean, it's not driven by the creator themselves, but a part of it, reason is it's driven by the capital, the money. I think some capital, they don't know how to spend the money, so make a sci-fi film. Everything you need made by yourself, totally. Because it's not like we make just action film, romance film, you can rent some props. But in sci-fi, I know, we made everything from just from the beginning.
So you're telling us that sci-fi is actually a better use of capital?
Yes, because they spend too much money. I think I don't know how to get money back, but I don't worry about that. We can see maybe next year, definitely 1, 2, 3, 4, maybe. I think just let we see what is going to happen.
So you said you were pitching the sci-fi project to an American studio.
Yeah,
So
well,
are you mostly looking to do these as international co-production, or?
No. 10 years ago, I just directly want to make an English-speaking film, not like this. Right now, everything changed. Right now, we definitely make a sci-fi film. We can speak Mandarin directly because we need to focus on the domestic market first. I just interviewed by the reporter. I said 2 steps. First step, we need to focus on the domestic market, and then we think how to bring the Chinese film overboard. Just like 5 years ago, when the director Wu Ershan ran his BD on the 30亿是多少钱? 3 billion RMB budget, a trilogy, the biggest film ever in China.
Wow.
Yeah, he's running just started shooting. And 5 years ago, he prepared for this project, and he said a lot of Hollywood producers and the studio invited him shooting film in Hollywood. He refused. He said, if I go to the Hollywood, I'm the class B, C, D director, but in China, I'm the best.
But you both raised an interesting question, which is possible co-productions to make films for the Chinese market, but also we're seeing something interesting where mainstream Chinese films can be seen in the States. There's the AMC 25, right?
Yeah.
Every week they have a new Chinese film. The audience is mostly Chinese diaspora. It's not local people. But do you see that developing? So one day Mandarin language genre films might grow and get a bigger American audience. Do you see co-productions working that way?
I mean, look, there's a giant segment of America that's afraid of subtitles, and they always have been, and they always will be, and they will not see a film that's not in English, 90 minutes in color and wrapped up rightly so they can go home. I do also see, though, like, if you go see a Chinese film at the Empire 25, and, you know, there are, I was telling someone who, generally 45 out of 52 weeks a year, there's at least one. We'd like that to be 52, and we'd like there to be a choice. The audience is going to be mostly Chinese and Chinese diaspora audience.
Yeah.
We then released the film on DVD. Now, the DVD market doesn't exist in China anymore. It's mostly streaming, but it still does here. So when you go to Walmart, you can pick up a copy of Wind Blast, or you can pick up a copy of This Is Not What I Expected, and we're finding that people are doing that. And I have no idea what they think of these films when they get home, but
I assume that there's no English dub, right?
we do not.
That's
engage
nice.
in
Good.
such.
Good.
For the action movies, I believe that like the Chinese distributor will send us one.
Oh, really?
We'll include it on there, but like we present films in the original language as one should. We're always looking out for the crossover film, and then there's a couple challenges with this. The first is that when we're bringing a film to the United States from China, we're not going to do it 4 months later because I know a lot of you guys out here have the internet. I know you are savvy about the internet, and I know that if I wait 3 months to bring you the film you want to see, you're going to find that film on the internet. We don't want that. We want you to come, get it on the big screen. We want you to relax, turn your phone off, get some popcorn or something. So we usually have...
You're doing day and date, right?
We're doing day and date, like, because there's this massive multi-million-dollar advertising campaign in China. Everyone in this room is plugged into Chinese films, so you know what's coming up, and you know what you want to see. You've heard about it, because the internet doesn't have a border on it. Like, in the 90s, you could say, oh, I brought this new film from China. It's Rumble in the Bronx. It came out in China 4 years ago, but whatever. Like, now it doesn't work like that. Like, now you've got Facebook, you've got Weibo, you've got WeChat, you've got Instagram. You know what people are doing around the world, so we've got to be day and date. What that means is we're not going to have time to do an entire new campaign on the film. Since we're not producing these movies, to correctly release a movie to the American audience takes a couple of months. We've managed to squeeze that into 3 to 4 weeks. So sometimes we'll spot them and we're like, look, this is going to do well with the Chinese audience, or this is going to do well with the Korean audience. We do Korean films as well. We won't talk about those today. We'll say, all right, here's what we're gonna do. We're not gonna do exactly day and date. It comes out on July 1st in China. We're gonna put it out July 21st in America. And that 3 weeks we have with the film gives us time to cut a new trailer, do some advertising in English, do a new poster, because the marketing materials will definitely not translate the way that we would want them to. Like what a Chinese mass audience is gonna look for in the home territory. We can put that trailer on the screen at Empire, but if we have a chance, we'd like to use that trailer for certain shows and then recut the trailer for a more, general audience sensibility. It's the same movie. We're not going to lie about it. We're not going to make, a romance look like, it's a martial arts action movie. But we are going to make sure that, like, we're being culturally sensitive while expanding the scope.
Well, yeah,
Those
that,
are rare.
that happens all the time. You get a trailer from a film abroad and you cut it for your audience. That's what you're talking about, yeah?
Totally, and like it takes, you can't do that overnight. So we've got it down to like, we can do it in 3 or 4 weeks. It's just a matter of spotting those films in advance. So the easy answer to that is like, you can do that with the action films and the martial arts films. So if you pay attention, like let's take Wolf Warrior 2 last year. Like we put it out day and date with China. It did very well. If you noticed during the release, about the 3rd week of release, a new trailer popped up. And the trailer was a little bit different. And that trailer was more targeted for just action fans, all races across the United States. And we kept it going so long that by the time we were done, you could see it at the IMAX theater on 34th Street. And when you walked into that show, it was, I would say, about 50-50. And that's sort of what we like to see. I love walking into a movie theater and it's 50% the Chinese audience and 50% the non-Chinese audience. And when there's a joke in the subtitles, everyone laughs at a different time. That's what we do.
I think we touched on this a little bit before, but you do come upon this sort of the disparities between audience reactions to genres overseas and in mainland. And for instance, we recently had Sylvia Chang at Metrograph, and she makes what to, I think, Western eyes are pretty straightforward melodramas. But a lot of Chinese people think that she makes these oblique arts films. And so her...
She would be very upset with that categorization.
But I mean,
she thinks
she's
of her
on
films
top.
as mainstream.
Yeah, she does. But a lot of people ask her, why are you so committed to making art films? And she's like, I don't think I make art films, But then on the flip side of that, you have an example of like Stephen Chow's The Mermaid, which like did like record-breaking mainland box office.
Sure.
And then you come to the US, major studio, Sony, represents the film, and they didn't even know they had the film for some reason, and they didn't have a trailer for it, they didn't have a poster for it, and I think they...
And it still made millions. It made millions
It
here,
made a
which
lot
they
of
didn't even
money.
realize.
They didn't realize, no. I mean, I think they thought of it as sort of a niche, artsy kind of film that nobody would get.
Well,
Why-
I
why do you
think that's
that-
an issue that we've been circling around here. It's like, why aren't Chinese films more widely accepted? Why aren't they in theaters all over the country instead of just 1 or 2 theaters in New York or major urban centers? And that's the real issue, because, face it, Chinese films are just as good as Hollywood films. They make just as much money now. Why can't we get access to them in the United States? What's holding them back?
Besides the subtitles.
Well, language. Whenever I ask filmmakers, that's what they say. They say it's a language, but a film like Wolf Warrior, you don't really need language. I liked Red Sea better.
Yes.
Did I like Wolf Warrior?
Yeah.
It was pretty propaganda,
I
was like Rambo.
And I'm not saying this even though it was I thought it was fantastic. I thought, listen,
Why you were a distributor.
I will put that film next to it. How is that different than Rambo? How is that different than Commando? American action films in the 80s were propaganda. Red Dawn? Come on, like, no. And they took it, and they did it, and they did it better. Like, and I give them a point for that. I thought Wolf Warrior 2 was the best film of last year.
Yeah, so why isn't Operation Red Sea more widespread? Why isn't it being shown in theaters all over the country?
Well, I
Because it's a
think
fantastic
Operation Red Sea was shown wide. It did quite well.
I mean, it did. Like,
Considering-
we did about 1.5 million with it, which is not 2,000 screen Hollywood release. But if you take out Bollywood films, which have a circuit of about 200 theaters you can do. It's the highest grossing foreign film of the year behind The Fantastic Woman. Like,
Yeah, but it made $500 million in China, right?
Let me just jump back real quick. Why do you think Mermaid was the exception?
Well, I honestly, from an exhibitor's point of view, you do have to commit yourself to a certain extent to showing Chinese films because it's a different workflow, it's a different time frame. And like to your point of, trying to circumnavigate the internet issue also means that you're dealing with different release schedules, right? So like sometimes Dylan just calls me and he's like, hey, what's your schedule in the next 2 weeks? And I'm like, I don't know, it's pretty full.
maybe it's confidential, but like we spent all of the weekend trying to figure out if we could buy Dying to Survive and put it out next Friday.
Yeah, so that's part of it is that, and you have to, we always try to leave some breathing room in the schedule, but sometimes it's just not possible because of the quick turnaround. And sometimes you just don't find out about certain things in the case of Mermaid. Like, wait, there's a new Stephen Chow film. Of course there is. Like, I read about this on Weibo or WeChat or whatever, and didn't even realize that Sony had it. And then just like, look up a booker and hopefully they can respond to you.
Stephen Chow's been burned by so many American distribution companies now. Miramax screwed him over, Sony screwed him over. He just doesn't want, it's like he's given up on the North American audience. He doesn't need it. He doesn't need it. He's making $1 billion in China. Why should he go and break his heart over a faulty distribution system?
Right, but it's not for him, it's for us.
Yeah,
It's for the film lovers, And,
well, that's where Dylan comes in, because he's going to get it to us.
It is, and I mean, that's the truth is like, when there's a film like that we know is going to cross over, I mean, like, Ip Man 3 played in 160 screens. For an independent film release, which is anything that's not from one of the big studios, that's really wide. Like, we have a unique challenge, which you touched on a second ago, like, you're not a chain theater, you are an art house, and you have an audience that will come and see what you put on screen. Whereas the chain theaters, there's 25 films playing Empire 25 right now. I'm in the film business, and I don't know what 3 of them are. Like, they're these random, like, VOD films or something. No one's gonna go see that movie unless I advertise correctly and drag them there. So the challenge that drives me nuts is, how you book 3 or 4 months out. Like, when I'm releasing an art film, I'm booking screens for November. Like, whereas on these films that we're getting 6 to 7 weeks before they come out, because we have to wait till they pass censorship. We have to wait till they pass delivery. Like, we're not going to have 4 months of lead time, so I can't actually book them at most of the art house theaters, where I think there'd be an audience for them, but I'm just not going to have the time. Like, I have to choose between going after the art house crowd, which tends to be a much smaller box office, or I can get it into 50 to 75 AMCs and Regals across the country, but unless you know what the film is, you're not going to get drug in there. That's where home video comes in for us, and that's where we sort of see the split in the audience. Like, we'll almost do 2 releases on these movies, and one is, as soon as we can get it into theaters, we get it into theaters, but then we wait 3 months and we have the time to do the new trailer and do the new art, and that's where we get the home media. I wish there was a way to sort of squish that timeline, but you're not gonna. You've got 2 screens, and they're wonderful screens, but you're not gonna have room for me next week.
It's okay, we do bring backs. So for everybody who missed them the first time around. There was such a heartbreak too with censorship, something censorship related recently with youth, because they had to go day and date, and we really, really wanted to show the film, and so it was. I remember, like, it was the Sunday before the Friday that we were opening the film, and Guan had been all over the place doing his publicity tours, and it had been really successful at all the festivals, et cetera, et cetera. And then I get a panic phone call from the distributor at 7 p.m. on a Sunday, and I'm like, okay, this is gonna be bad. And they're like, I'm so sorry, but we can't show the film. And all the tickets for Friday and Saturday had been sold out. And we have,
Because
this
because what?
Because of our next topic, censorship, which is a very rich and complex, nice one, topic in Chinese cinema, but keep going, please.
Well, I mean, it's really boring that we had to refund every single ticket, and we felt really badly about this, and there was no definable, date for the rescheduling, for the release. And, you know, I think there was a video of Feng Xiaogang like crying because it also had to be delayed indefinitely in mainland. And that was, you know, insane.
So let's get real fundamentally, I think most people know, but does that everything has to pass censorship to be officially played anywhere? I mean, I guess you can go without censorship and play at festivals in certain cases, but basically there's the dragon logo. You don't have the what is it, the green dragon logo? Then your film's not going to play. That's what happened here, right? And what's interesting is that, from what I understand, eventually it did pass censorship, and the cuts were not that much.
It was like a 5-minute difference or something.
Yeah.
To give a background, the
It's on now.
where is
Should
it?
up.
Huh?
Point. The censorship is not because of the content, because they already passed the censorship actually. Because film in China is not only film. It's about the society study, everything. Yeah.
Can you tell the audience what the film is about and who the director is and who the writer of
We're
the
talking
film
about
is?
Feng Xiaogang's,
So that's the
oh,
audience
yeah,
understand the
yeah.
context of the
Right.
movie?
Yeah, the youth is directed by Feng Xiaogang, and he's the most important Chinese film director, just one of in the last 20 years.
Yeah, very
It
interesting.
was
And
written
he's
by
so-
a terrific writer also.
Yeah, and he's so unique. And I didn't talk about, we talk a lot about the genre film, but genre, this word is from French.
Right.
And then 1970s get into America. And then actually back to the 1980s in China, we have a lot of called genre film. But you know, a few years later, something happened. And then, so that's why people are easy to forget things and easy to throw away or very good traditional. I mean, Chinese film in the 1930s, the top of the world, and they get involved to the war, and so everything's gone. And then 10 years back, 10 years blank. And finally, into 1980s, with something coming back, very good one. And they're very good commercial film, genre film. For example, 405 Murder Case, Murder Case 405, 405谋杀案. Everybody saw this film. The box office is out of your imagination. Everyone saw it. My parents, yeah, see it dozen times.
What year?
1982 or 3. The story, you can imagine that. They're fighting the government. You know, the story, you can, if you put here, you can imagine that Chinese film can go that far away. But right now, young Chinese people don't know that history. And then back to right now, genre film is already big difference from Hollywood genre film right now in China.
Right.
Just like yesterday panel,
Yeah.
you're not there.
I was there. I was there.
Oh,
for
you're
most of
there,
it.
yeah.
I'm watching you.
Big brother, huh? And I don't know. Audience ask a question, talking about a contract director or independent director.
Yes,
That's a very
yes.
funny question
And you had a very interesting answer.
Yes.
Please.
because it's a wrong question, but it's a good question.
So basically, someone asked, in Hollywood, you have someone who's basically a director for hire at a big studio, but then there's the independent directors who are making, you know, they're passionate about their own aesthetic and so forth. And you were asked about this in China. It's quite different.
Quite different. So why I thought it's a good question, because that's why we need to do this panel, because a lot of people in States, in America, know very little about China, what's going to happen right now. China is a director center, and they admire creative guy, talent. Not in the States, they continue producer center in the studio
Producer
system,
center.
100 years, over 100 years. But China, different stage. Every stage so different. New stage forgets last stage. New stage forgets every last stage. So we're totally new. Everything always new. So in the last 20 years, we try our best to find something good back. And we don't have the contract director. If the investor, film company, producer decided it's your story, you direct this, maybe no more than 10%, they were fired. But it would be terrible things happen. So we don't need that because we trust the director till the end, mostly. And also the new directors, I think they are the best memory the last 5 years, but their best time. They're easy to get money.
So the director has much more freedom.
Yeah,
The budget's not going to be stopped.
That's why,
taking off the project.
back to the genre. The genre film in China actually is the director film. That's why, how to explain Feng Xiaogang? When he finished his first stage early comedy, and maybe from 非诚勿扰, 一声叹息, you can see that what kind of genre in Hollywood, you can't define it by genre. A lot of Chinese films like this. So, but the only one genre beyond the comedy and action, I would say, is a topic film. It's the biggest genre. Dying to Survive, the topic is about how to die, the drug system, the medical system. We are talking about it every day. The biggest top box office films, they are all big topic. People talk every day. They don't love films. They don't go to theater just every weekend. No, moviegoers in China, we step by step every year to grab them back to theater, become moviegoer. Moviegoer means maybe you go to the theater 10 times, 1 year maybe, I'm not sure. So not as much. They are only saw the free movies on internet. So they change the lead time. So genre film, I keep thinking you're talking about, I think it's a little bit different in China. So they only focus on the mouse, the recommendations.
So do you think that the social topicality of genre films and the way that audiences interface with that has something to do with why film is so heavily censored? One time I was speaking to a film festival organizer in China, independent film festival organizer. He has a lot of problems every year, of course. And I said, why is the fine arts world so free? I mean, it's like hundreds of millions of dollars a year enterprise. And then film is so heavily controlled by the state. And he said, well, I think the government always saw film as propaganda and or something like that. And fine art, even though some of the content might be more politically subversive, it's seen by the government as a product to export.
I think the government doesn't worry about fine arts because nobody will see it.
Yes, that's all right. You know China. Yeah, you come to China before. Sorry, back to the youth for your film.
Yes.
Back to this.
Let's come back to why it wasn't content, you said.
Yeah, not because of content, because the Lao Bing, the veteran. The veterans. The veterans problem. They are asking more benefits. Actually, they're asking them every year. But this year, they have a target. We are going to see the youth, and we gather all the veterans, province by province. They're getting together. They even plan to go to Beijing, go north to Beijing. It's horrible for them. So before the releasing, and several 2 or 3 provinces, I don't say exactly what, already called the head of the film bureau said, if you release on that date, we won't allow release in all provinces. One, 直辖市, how to say? It's a direct capital city, 1, and another 2. And 24 hours later, another several provinces join. So you can't release already. Not controlled by the film bureau. Finally, it's a Guan. The security department finally stepped in. It's beyond the film bureau. It's not about the short, long or short. No. It's for example, the Die to Survive in the first weekend 3 days, actually 4 days. Its premiere 点映怎么说？一天一的点映。The testing screening is already over 100 million box office. It's amazing, right? And the opening days, first 3 days, over 1 billion RMB. But on the Sunday, we already got a notice. Stop the press, stop comments, stop forward, stop everything to do the publicity of this Dying to Survive.
Yeah, they tried to erase it.
Yeah, and the Monday, right? Even I make a vlog, just like Casey in New York, talking about Dying to Survive, upload to the video web. Then
Gone.
I asked why. I said, yeah, we already should receive the notice. We stop talking about anything about it. So it's not about this film good or not, because the government don't want to, we'll focus on the drug system, medical system. It's good, but don't so quick. No, steady, always control. So always want to control, don't doing this. This is okay.
One of the problems is that there's no censorship policy. There's nothing written down. There are no rules. So filmmakers go into a project not knowing what's going to be censored.
Exactly.
So going back to your science fiction thing, and also speaking to Choi Hart, what he said, the way to get around censorship is to do it in the past. Do the movie in the past, or do the movie in the future, where they can't argue with any of the politics then.
Yeah. I give you an example. The Dying to Survive is supposed to be 117 minutes, but the public version is no more than 100 minutes. So at least 17 minutes gone, being cut off. Because even right now, the Douban.com show 117 minutes, but actually not as long. I know one thing. A friend of mine, they saw the original version. When he back to India, he want to be a good guy, and he want to be back to be a because he sell those drugs and want to be a good guy. So he saw some drugs try to survive on the ground, and in the India they want to clean the drug to do the medicine. They give the big shot on the try to survive bugs. So there's a metaphor, something like people struggle, but no way, or that. But on the public version, no this shot. But actually, a lot of director friends of mine, they said, it's good. The film bureau know how to edit. If you keep this, how to say, too obvious, not so art. So that means the director want to say too much.
So that was a happy accident?
Yeah, kind of. So the censorship, I know, especially in New York in these days, they're talking a lot. It's all bad. I want to say the censorship not only about censorship. Something film has some problem beyond the film censorship.
So, well, it's interesting because in the States we have a rating system, right? For commercial films, you don't have to rate your film, but if you want to be a commercial film that's playing across all the major cineplexes, then you do. But you don't have a rating system in China. You only have a censorship. So when does content become an issue, or is it just completely random?
No, we have the 就是我们有那个电影叫什么 We have the publicity text, a guide, but not like Hays Code, in the American history. Hays Code does guide you.
We don't have that either. We don't have that.
I know. But right now you don't have all because you decided by the district.
No, we have a very strong censorship thing. There are certain words you're not allowed to use, or else you'll get an R rating or higher than that. So
Yeah, they have
very
a
strong.
rating.
But they don't get released, you have a rating on it.
Or else you cut out the cigarettes, or you cut out the word.
I explained several steps because my major in the British film economy is foreign film history, focus on Hollywood system.
Okay.
So I know Hays Code. In the history, guide you second by second. How many seconds is allowed? Beyond that, no way. How many shots? How many big shots? Kissing, even the love thing. So, but in China we don't have that because finally Hays Code disappeared, and they
Right.
have the different PG, PG-13, and in China, first of all, we don't follow his code. We don't have exact instruction. Only very, you can see that. It just depend by people. And secondly, we don't to divide it in different categories, PG, PG, no. I heard a rumor that they want to divide it in 3 grades, some kind of A, B, C, but no way. Because the 3rd grade film, this means the poor film in Chinese language, so they can't divide it in 3. So,
The old Hong Kong system.
yeah.
Category 3, yeah.
Yeah, category 3, no way,
So
so.
what you have instead of censorship is you have self-censorship, which in a way is kind of worse.
Yes.
Because the director censors himself before he starts filming.
Yes.
Because he's worried he won't be able to distribute his movie.
You can see that every filmmaker, every director, every producer, they're censored by themselves. And also, just from 2 years ago, the theater showed the notice by themselves. Red Sea operation,
Yeah.
not fit for the kids under 13, under 12, different, under 10, no way, I don't know. There's no standard, depend on the theater owner.
Oh, all the theaters, they did it locally. They decided,
Locally, yeah.
They decided based on
Only
where they-
few theaters, they have own, yeah. They only decided to.
You're not
This
rating
film,
it, right?
What's that?
You're not rating it, right?
I believe the Motion Picture Association of America are terrorists and should be treated thusly. I don't like arguing with them, no, okay, like, the thing is, there is some censorship, like, we have here, like, if you have a particularly, it's usually sexual, NC-17 is as good as censorship, because theater chains won't show the movie.
They're not allowed to.
They're just not allowed, so we get, like, when I've done independent films in the past that have gotten NC-17, I can either cut the film, try and release it unrated, or take an NC-17.
the Red Sea operation, what the rating states?
We didn't get it rated, but it would have been ours.
Let me just jump in real quick. When you don't write a film, that means you can't get into certain theater chains, basically, right?
You know what the exception is?
No.
Foreign language films.
Oh, I should know this, but I'm also in distribution.
Like if you're going to release wide on 2,000 screens, independent films don't really have to do
Right,
it.
right,
And
right.
there's one major theater chain that needs it rated, but if it's foreign language, they don't care.
Right.
So
Because nobody will see it.
their assumption is that no one will go, so they just let it pass. So we use that loophole every time.
So the genre, back to the genre film in China, I think sci-fi is good. I just don't know what's going to happen. Because too big budget, beyond my imagination. They're working hard. They're struggling. Every director, the face, terrible face, everything. I make film always happy. I'm a happy guy. I just encourage my partner always. And the true images, a film, based on true story, this kind of film, more and more. But it's uncertain because I just introduced the new film to survive.
Time to survive.
Dying to survive?
Yeah, they stopped the publicity. So I think every day they're changing. We can't to, we don't know what's going to happen tomorrow. We only, more and more director and film producer, they will get back to their heart. Do what you believe. It's enough. It's okay, because Vulcan doing his belief, 3 billion budget, 3 billion RMB budget. So I don't know what's going to spend. They are shooting in Qingdao right now. They're shooting at least 1 or 2 years, but they're shooting a very long time.
I'd just like to make a point that the Chinese system is a lot like the Hollywood system as well.
Yeah.
If you look at the top 10 box office Chinese films, they're big budget blockbusters with a lot of special effects, or they're big comedies like Monster Hunt or The Mermaid. If you look at the United States top 10, they're all comic book movies. They're all Marvel movies, which in a
But
way
it's
is
new.
its own genre.
But it's new, right? Only in the last 10 years.
Right,
Yeah,
right.
but it's the same thing. The director is searching for heart, trying to do his own project, trying to make a heartfelt movie. He is not going to get the widespread distribution that a Marvel movie is going to get. So people in Hollywood are having the same struggle with self-censorship and finding a way into the marketplace as the directors in China are
I
having.
don't think that's struggle. They are going to do the TV series already.
Yes, well, everything.
But they work for Netflix. I think they don't struggle. Yeah, the Netflix.
Let me just make another point. The Netflix acquisition budget for this year is $13 billion.
Yeah, and it's going up next year. I saw the report. They're going more and more money.
So they're gonna own everything.
Yeah.
And the horrible thing is, when a great Chinese film ends up in Netflix,
Yeah.
it's impossible to see. It's hidden away in all these categories. If you don't know the title of it, if you don't know the star of it, you will get recommended all of these other films instead. They're very hard. It's very hard to navigate Netflix, and it's bad for Asian films in general, I think.
Yes.
But
But
it's interesting because there is a lot of Asian content on Netflix, but Netflix is interesting because they keep changing what they're buying or they're creating, and I'm not sure what they're doing as far as Chinese content is now or in the future. I know that now
Think
there's
a
so
bigger-
much TV and so forth.
Yeah,
on
but
Netflix.
they just lump it together. They lump grade Z kung fu movies in together with a very good Asian film. It's just all in the same
And
line.
again, a lot of TV content,
Mhm, exactly, yeah.
it's too much.
Well, I think a big factor is that Netflix is worldwide, but not in China.
Right.
So they limit, they're not gonna buy home stuff to show in China. You've got IQI or, other
Right.
platforms there that are more home-based.
they cooperate with ITE, IQI, and Tencent. Yeah. I think two important things. Very strange. In the America, I think most important thing is Netflix. In China, I think most important things is not content, is the tickets, online tickets. I mean, they are all, all right now, over 95% tickets sold online. Even maybe 96, 97, 90, maybe finally 100%. Right now, everything on the app, everything on the phone in China right now. I seldom, this is my first time to grab a cash in the last 1 year. Because I have to go to the States, We don't need the cash already.
Can you talk about how they're manipulating online ticket sales?
That is not material. The reverse is material. I should reply, learn from Zach Markberg, just because he talked with the Congress, something like that.
It's just a rumor.
No, I mean, I think it's a new trend, it's a new technology, that's Netflix. So we are producer, I make content. I realize I don't want to spend too much time on this. I only to think how to adapt this, because time can't go back. Netflix already come up, you can't kill it. And the online tickets, they already totally changed the business model already. And this is the only change in the future 10 years. China film market, not box office over or beats American market. No, not that way. I mean the studio system are totally changed. Chinese film market, they have their own rules, new model. I think it's only one chance because of the online tickets, because they change everything, change the distribution, change how to do the P&A budget, how to do the take care of the media, totally change. But this, we got a chance to get over, to win the state film market in the future 10 years. So it's very important. But I'm a film producer. I don't want to spend too much time. I only want to focus on my partner, my talents, director, writers. But it's so weird because one thing happens in America, one thing happens in China. Because America, I heard, they hate buy the tickets online, even more expensive than you buy tickets on the counter, right? Because they have own reason. But in China, they don't care this.
And I'm not gonna make this, I'm gonna make this stickier because now we have movie pass. So that's like that's a whole nother
But you know, this movie pass is getting to tier pricing.
Right, I saw that.
Yeah.
But this is a serious question, and if you don't want to answer it, I understand, but how can you trust the box office results?
Yes, more and more. Why? 20 years ago, 10 years ago, I write the article, the box office analysis articles from 2003 when I started my master's degree. So
that time, you can't find the data. Only published on the 中国电影报 China film newspaper
Newspaper, yeah.
weekly.
Okay, right.
Weekly.
Right.
On paper, you need to get. So, but right now, we have the Maoyan and the Taopiao, two apps dominate this online tickets market. They combine together the market share over 95% maybe. And they also have the professional version. The professional version shows the box office changing maybe every 2-3 seconds. Because it's also online directly connected with the film government, film bureau. Every 10 p.m. day night, they will correct the number, compare the number. And the next day morning, about yesterday's box office number, they are correct and accurate. Very, very accurate.
I'd say from the distributor's point, the last 5 to 7 years, like it's the first time we've been able to get real-time, accurate Chinese box office. And it's not something that changed because it's checked and it's, it's tied into the cinemas, it's tied into the ticketing system. It's very accurate.
Yeah, and I mean, 10 years, more than 10 years ago, I only one way to check it out on paper is weekly. Right now, by seconds. And everybody, no, not including you, because why? The IP address, but only in China you can check it out.
Right.
I even use the VPN, want to walk back to China. No, it won't work. I want to check the deal because all the filmmakers check the box office, not every day, every hour. When you release your own film, every hour change it because it's very accurate. But I can't check it out in States. I'm a little bit angry. I just check it out. Yeah.
So let me stop you for a second. We're just running out of time, so let's take it to the audience. Anyone have any questions? Right here.
I have a question about co-productions of Hollywood and China. Is it a scam? Does it have potential? We've seen some failures, I would say, like the Great Wall, but I'm sure there are successes. I just want to know what the professionals think.
Everyone hear the question?
Hollywood is terrible, and Hollywood misunderstood China really bad. And I say this, I don't work in a major studio, I never will. The major studios saw China rising as an economic power, and as one does in a major studio, it's like, ooh, there's money. Let's go see if we can get it. So that's why when you go to the movies now, you'll see the Yadi Brothers logo on 90% of the films you go see. Go look at the trailers. There's always a Chinese company in there because Hollywood tried to use it as capital, and the Chinese companies were too smart for it, and the government was too smart for it, and they kind of shut that down. So that kind of co-financing you're going to see less of. As for actual co-productions, I think there's this strong realization in the Chinese market that it's bigger than the American market. They don't need as much from Hollywood as they thought they did 20 years ago. So you'll see, Jason Blum is going to do something with, I forget who it is over there, and we're going to try to duplicate the Blumhouse model that they do in the US with in-language Chinese content, Chinese stars, Mandarin language. That's an interesting side of co-production I think I'm more interested in than seeing, a great filmmaker like Zhang Yimou do something like The Great Wall, frankly.
Yeah, I would say that Hollywood needs China a lot more than China needs Hollywood. And at this point, most of the Hollywood production offices have closed down in China because they've been unsuccessful. Where I think Hollywood is working in China is under the line people, special effects people, stereo 3D people. I think they need that in China. So there's a lot of Americans doing that, or Hollywood people doing that.
Right over here.
As far as the co-productions, when will China, if ever, put together a co-production treaty with the U.S. as they have with most other countries in the rest of the world to help pass films to enter China? Because we all have to, in co-productions, we have to fill out the proper paperwork. We have to get all that together. But one of the most fundamental pieces that are missing from it is the treaty. When will, if China make that treaty with the U.S., if ever?
I think first Donald Trump should stop the trade war
It has
first.
nothing to do with Trump. It has nothing to do with Trump.
Let me explain to you.
It's been like that since for the last 50 years.
Yes. Let's explain the co-production, how to define co-production. If you, Judy, right, also another the translator for us, thank you. And the co-production film, if you, from the cultural perspective, I can tell you, it's fake, it non-exist, never to step into the project kind of that. It will be horrible memories, all of it. It won't work. Maybe 1 or 2, 3. For example, the Monkey King story with Hua Yi, Jackie Chan and Jet Li. It's a little bit maybe, yeah. Critic is successful in the States, but not good in China. So, but another aspect, if you only co-financing, it's okay. But definitely, American story is American, focus on the American. Chinese story is focused on Chinese. Don't want to mix it together. It's horrible. Whatever. Over 12 years ago, you don't head of the Guan. I used to be his assistant, and he always said we want to do more co-production. Actually, I think he won't believe himself. He don't believe what he's talking about because the government needs want to do something. You know, government thinks China with some country government will do something together. It's for the that's just maybe China Institute something. But they want to do, no, yeah, you're right. Don't do that. Never do that. Friend of mine, I have a lot of resources in France. We should do something together. No way. You will.
They have treaty.
Yeah.
France and China has treaty.
Yeah,
so
that's it.
Very easy to do.
Yes.
US doesn't have that treaty.
Yeah, so what do you think? When is it going to happen?
Brazil has the treaty. Germany has the treaty. Everybody has the
Okay,
treaty. The
I
US.
think maybe states is too important for China because
Come on.
film is not always about film. In China,
I understand.
yeah.
But it's a big enough market that a Hollywood US director where they bring Rennie Harlin over there,
Yeah.
give them $100 billion to make movies, but they won't develop the local Chinese writer or director over there.
Can you explain what these
The treaty,
treaties are?
yeah, I'm a little bit lost. What kind of treaty were you talking about? sorry.
Maybe Daniel, maybe you can explain?
Yeah, China limits the number of foreign productions that they'll show and allow to show in their theaters. I think it's 30 or 34 a year. So unless you have
quota. You mean the quota?
Yeah, and
You
in
mean
order to get your film
okay?
to play in China,
But they
you
used
have
to
film.
think that a co-production would get them access
Yeah.
to the Chinese market. It doesn't work that way. It has to be fully Chinese funded in order to get past that quota.
And you have to be part of the treaty. So when is China going to meet us halfway?
But China doesn't need the United States. Here's the thing, a China
Yeah, but they don't
production.
need the United States, but then they'll bring the US talent over there, pay them
Yeah, but
millions
he's
of dollars,
working
and
on-
they won't develop the Chinese local
Yeah,
talent.
But he's
because-
working on a Chinese film. He's not working on a Hollywood
Yes,
film.
because right now.
So Rennie Harlin knows Chinese culture better than the local Chinese
He
people.
knows how to make those action films for his producers.
For example, right now, Chinese doing things like this, totally learn from Hollywood. What is Hollywood? Hollywood, not America. Hollywood is a worldwide most talented filmmaker, talented people getting here.
Hollywood's hypocrisy.
Okay,
So
so,
that is another problem.
so I think we're running, how much time? We have another question or two?
One more question.
Okay, right in the back.
You have like Wanda who owns what, 3,000 theaters, I don't know how many theaters they own, right? And you have, they're a Chinese-owned theater, and yet why don't they put Chinese blockbuster films in their theaters to promote Chinese films in America?
Because they don't want to lose money. It would be-
Use your mic.
Yeah, but when you have a film like Mermaid that did $525 million in China in 4 weeks, and then Sony dumps the film, what, 30 screens, 20 screens?
That's Sony's fault, you know? I mean, that's not Wanda's fault.
No, but I'm saying, why
Wanda's
doesn't
not
Sony
gonna-
just say, yo, Wanda, we got this film, put it in the theaters?
Well, you would think they work that way, but they're not that smart, frankly. You know, what happens is with a Chinese production, when it makes its money, when it's a hit in China, it doesn't need the North American market. That's all icing, it's gravy to them.
Right.
Whereas there are a lot of Hollywood films that if they don't get into China or into foreign markets, they're going to lose money. They need that foreign market. China doesn't really need that foreign market. They make that $500 million by themselves.
You're starting to see the first sequels to Hollywood movies that are only being greenlit because the film did well in China. Pacific Rim 2 was a disaster everywhere in the world except for China.
And why do you think The Rock's in Hong Kong for Skyscraper? It's because they're trying to get into the Chinese market, which they did, I think.
I just want to explain a little bit. China, in the next few years, they don't need Hollywood film. They need Hollywood talented. Just like Hollywood needs all over the world talented. They become Hollywood. So China, I don't know China what's going to be, but I know China will get more and more talented people come to China doing Chinese film. Whatever is part of saying Mandarin or half Mandarin, half English speaking is okay. But don't do Pacific Rim 2 like that. Yeah. Totally rubbish. Totally. Really. Nobody will like this film. Nobody, my friends involved this, nobody will like. So that is, I say, is a lie, kind of co-production. No, don't do that. So, I mean, right, I totally agree with you. Technically, we don't need Hollywood film and market. Even the quota, totally open, get them in. But I know the governments, they have their own national strategy. I don't know how to explain. So they're fighting for time, just like, you know, the Hollywood become Hollywood. Before World War II, the Hollywood film only showed in the States. But they have the Marshall Project, Marshall Project, because they're helping European. And actually they are dominated their market. So they sell a lot of Hollywood film to the European. But they are calling, we are helping you. Because after World War II. Then from 1970, the Hollywood film dominated the whole world. So just like you said, Indian film don't need Hollywood film. They live happily. Because the China market is so unique, even Indian market can't compare that because we have the over 800 million city people. They are all potential movie goer. It's never happened in the last 100 years ago, but the States, over 400 million people. It's different economic model actually. So if we are talking about Chinese film, market, we need to spend a lot of time to know what is China film, Chinese film history, why changing like this, and then I think a lot of topic we can talk. But so I love this kind of panel. Every time I explain a lot of background stuff. So I love Hollywood. I love the Hollywood film. but I love Hollywood. The talent is more. So in the few years, more and more money will put on invited all the talents come to China. I think.
Well, I wish we had more time, but thank you very, very much. And we're very excited to be part of the new film program.
Right, and I just wanted to say thank you to the New York Asian Film Festival, thank you to China Film Insider, and what a great discussion because you told us all about exactly what I was suggesting in the beginning, the complexity of China, the complexity of it, and not to mention the rise of the Chinese market. You don't need Hollywood movies anymore. You've got your own audience and your own market. Right? Thank you so much for all the nuances.